Hello again. Hope all is fantastic. Today we're going to talk about someone special in the history of mankind, Jesus. There's been many artifacts that have been found linking him, supposedly, with dating and so forth. Not the app, but anyway, here's some artifacts that have been found that are quite fascinating. If you're religious, wonderful. If you're not religious, wonderful. If you have a different religion, wonderful. Here's some history of a man named Jesus. Holy foreskin. In Catholicism, holy relics were thought to offer miracles to the faithful. Something associated with a saint in life could be a little tricky. Even part of the body was amazing. Even better than bits of a saint were artifacts connected to Jesus himself. Unfortunately, when Jesus was taken bodily into heaven, he took most of his flesh with him. One part that was thought to still exist on earth was the foreskin that was cut off while he was an infant. The holy pubescent, or the holy penis, it was claimed by a number of churches in Europe. One of the holy foreskins was held in a golden cross in Rome until the city was sacked in 1527. This is not the theft that you would be thinking about. From Rome, it was taken to the village of Calcula and paraded annually for believers to see. In 1983, the parish priest made a shocking announcement to his flock. The foreskin was gone. He said that thieves had taken the relic, unfortunately. There are some, however, who think that this may be more than just theft. By the 20th century, the Catholic Church had become a bit embarrassed by people going to visit part of Jesus' penis. Writing or talking about the holy penis became punishable by excommunication. Was the foreskin stolen by the church itself to remove it from sight? Who knows? But it is gone, unfortunately. Another relic was Jesus' blood. The crucifixion of Jesus was a bloody affair. He was also scourged before he was nailed to the cross. Much blood was shed on the way to the Calvary. Given the importance of Jesus' blood in jesuschrist, it was obvious that if anyone could claim some, they would have an important relic, to say the least. Many samples of the precious blood could be found in churches across the world. The Basilica of the Holy Blood in Bourges was built by people in 1134 AD. When he went on the Second Crusade, he returned with a sample of the Holy Blood. He was said to have received it from King Baldwin III of Jerusalem. The blood is held in a vial in the church and has long been revered. It was once thought that the dried blood would turn to liquid weekly. An indulgence was granted to pilgrims who viewed the blood. Other churches have also claimed to have a portion of Jesus' blood. Many are curious about that. Visitors to the church could have been blessed having them touching the relic as well. This blood was so famous that it was mentioned by the Chaucer in the Canterbury Tales. Under Henry VIII, many of the sites of the pilgrimage was destroyed, unfortunately. Go Henry! The blood of Hales was condemned as being merely duck's blood and colored honey. It was taken from the abbey, the gold from it stripped off. What happened to the blood is not known. But I have seen photos of the blood in a vial, so I'm not sure if that's the real one or not. Curious if they had studies upon that one. The holy tunic of Christ is said to have been worn by Jesus during or shortly before his crucifixion. It is preserved at the Cathedral of Trier in Germany. In the Gospel of John, the soldiers cast lots of who would receive this tunic, because it was woven in one single piece. Hence the name, the seamless robe. When they had crucified Jesus, they took his garments and divided them into 4 parts. To every soldier a part and the coat. Now the coat was without seam, woven whole from the top down. Therefore they said among themselves, "Let us not tear it, but cast lots of it, and then it will become." Thus the saying is in Scripture was fulfilled. They divided it amongst themselves, and upon my vesture they did cast lots, said in John 19:23-24. According to legend, Helena, mother of Constantine the Great, discovered the seamless robe in the Holy Land in the year 327, along with several other relics, including the true cross. Not the false cross, but the true cross. According to different versions of the story, she either bequeathed it and sent it to the city of Trier, where Constantine had lived for some years before becoming emperor. The history of the robe is certain only from the 12th century. On May 1st, 1196, Archbishop Joanne I of Trier had an altar in which the seamless robe was contained. It is no longer possible to determine the exact historical date of the matter, so many hold it to be before medieval forgery. The various attempts at preserving it and restoring it, though the centuries had made it difficult to determine how much of the relic is genuine, actually stems from the time of Jesus, unfortunately. A scientific explanation of the specimen has not been conducted. The Holy Lance, also known as the Spear of Destiny, or the Holy Spear, or Lance of Longinus, is the name given to the lance that pierced Jesus' side as he hung on the cross in John's account of the crucifixion. The lance is mentioned only in the Gospel of John, 19:31-37. The Gospel states that the Romans planned to break Jesus' leg, a practice known as cure for crimen, which was a method of hasting death during a crucifixion. Just before they did so, they realized that Jesus was already dead, and that there was no reason to break his legs. Good job, Romans. To make sure that he was dead, a Roman soldier stabbed him into the side. But one of the soldiers pierced his side with the lance, and immediately there came out blood and water, such as John 19:34. Thrones were also found upon all of the relics in the world for Jesus. St. John tells that in the night between Maundy Thursday and Good Friday, Roman soldiers mocked Christ and his people by placing a thorny crown on his head. John 19:12. The crown housed in the Paris Cathedral is a circle of canes bundled together and held by gold threads. The thorn was attached to a braided circle, which measures 21 centimeters in diameter. The thorns were divided by over the centuries by the Byzantine emperors and the kings of France. There are 70 of all the same type, which have been confirmed as the original thorns. The relics of the Passion presented at Notre Dame de Paris included a piece of the cross, which had been kept in Rome and delivered by St. Helen, the mother of Emperor Constantine, a nail of the Passion, and the Holy Crown of Thorns. All of these relics, the Crown of Thorns included, is without a doubt the most precious and most revered of many things in history. Despite numerous studies and historical and scientific research efforts, its authenticity cannot be certified. It has been the object of more than 16 centuries of Christian prayer, among other things. Another fact of the matter, if you're still with me, in the Christian tradition, the true cross refers to the actual cross that was planted upon Jesus. Today, many fragments of wood are claimed as a true cross, but in most cases, it is hard to establish their authenticity. The spread of the story of the 4th century discovery of the true cross was partially due to its inclusion in 1216 by a very popular book, The Golden Legend, which also included other tales such as St. George and the Dragon. Pieces of the true cross included half of the INRI inscription tablet and preserved at the ancient Basilica St. Crome in Rome. Very small pieces or particles of the true cross are reportedly preserved in hundreds of other churches in Europe inside crucifixes. Their authenticity is not accepted universally by those of the Christian faith, and the accuracy of the reports surrounding the discovery of the true cross is questioned by many Christians. The Iron Crown of Labrador is both interesting and amazing, of most ancient royal antiquity of Europe. The crown became one of the symbols of the Kingdom of Lombards and later of the medieval Kingdom of Italy. It is kept in a cathedral of Monza in Milan. The Iron Crown is so called from a narrow band of iron about 1 centimeter long, said to be beaten out of one of the nails used for the crucifixion. The outer circlet of the crown is 6 segments of beaten gold partially enabled, joined together by hinges and set with 22 gemstones that stand out in relief. In the form of crosses and flowers, its small size and hinged construction have suggested to some that it was originally in a large arm length, and perhaps a crown as well. For others, the small size of the crown was caused by a readjustment after the loss of 2 segments, as described in historical documents. The veil of Veronica, which according to legend was used to wipe the sweat from Jesus' brow as he carried the cross, is also said to bear the likeness of his face as well. Today, several images claim to be the veil of Veronica, There is an image kept in St. Peter's Basilica in Rome, which purports to be the same Veronica as was revered in the Middle Ages. Very few inspections are recorded in modern times, and there are no detailed photographs of it as well. The most detailed record inspection of the 20th century occurred in 1907, when an art historian was allowed to remove 2 plates of glass to inspect the image. The Scala Santa, or Holy Stairs, are, according to the Christian tradition, the steps that led up to the point where Jesus stood on during his passion for his trial. The stairs were reportedly brought to Rome by St. Helena in 4th century. For centuries, the stairs had attached Christian pilgrimages who wished to honor the passion of Jesus. It consists of 28 white marble steps, now encased by wooden steps, located in a building which incorporates part of the old Lantern Palace, located opposite the Basilica of St. John Lantern. They are located next to a church which was built on the ground brought from Mount Calvary. The stairs led to a sanctuary, or Holy of Holies, the personal chapel of the early popes, and the Lantern Palace, known as the Chapel of St. Lawrence. The image of Edessa is similar to the Sweat one, also known as the Mandelion, was allegedly sent by Jesus himself to King Edgar V of Edessa to cure him of leprosy. With a letter declining an invitation to visit the king, the story of the image is the product of centuries of development during which the image was lost and reappeared. Several times, for that matter. Today, 2 images claim to be the Holy Face of Genova at the Church of St. Bernard the Armenies, Genoa. The other, the Holy Face of St. Silverato, kept in the Church of St. Silverato in Rome, up to 1870. The theory that the object, as the form from the 6th to the 13th century, was in fact the Shroud of Turin, has been the subject of debate, but is now mostly rejected as a hypothesis. The Holy Grail is another one, such as like Indiana Jones. The Holy Grail is a sacred object figuring in literature and certain Christian traditions, most often identified with the dish, plate, or cup used by Jesus at the Last Supper and said to possess miracle powers. The connection of Joseph of Arimathea with the Grail legend dates from late 12th century, in which Joseph receives the Grail from a person of Jesus and sends it with his followers to Great Britain. Building upon this theme, later writers recounted how Joseph used the Grail to catch Christ's blood while interpreting him, and that in Britain he focused a line of guardians to keep it safe. The quest for the Holy Grail makes up an important segment in the Christian community. The legend may combine Christian lore with a Celtic myth of enduring powers, or special powers to say the least. The Grail legends developed has been traced in detail by cultural historians. It is a legend which first came together in the form of written romances, deriving perhaps from some pre-Christian folklore, hints in the later 12th and early 13th century. The Grail romances centered on Percival and were woven into the moral general idea of time. Some of the Grail legend is interwoven with the legends of the Holy Chalice. The work of Leonardo da Vinci presents the Holy Grail as a sang real literally meaning holy blood, or blood lineage of Jesus and alleged wife Mary Magdalene, which has been kept secret, hidden to date. Jesus' boat is another one that might have been found. In 1986, a severe drought in Israel resulted in the water level of the Sea of Galilee dropping several meters. 2 brothers went searching along the northwest shoreline for archaeological objects, and they certainly found something amazing, and discovered the outline of an ancient boat in the mud. The fragile wood, exposed for the first time 2,000 years later, required immediate attention to remove it safely. It was submerged in a chemical preservation for 11 years before it was put on display in the local museum. The Galilee boat, or the Jesus boat, as it is popularly called, is approximately 27 feet long and 7.5 feet wide. It could house about 15 men as well, or women. 14 tests dated it to about 40 BC, plus or minus 80 years. In short, the boat may have been used in the time of Jesus, and certainly typical of the style of the vessel that fishermen like Peter, Andrew, James, and John would have used as well. In the New Testament, we read of Jesus crossing the Sea of Galilee, such boats, and even teaching from a boat as well, when the shore became too crowded with listeners. The Galilee boat is the only ancient boat ever discovered at the Sea of Galilee, and helps us understand the types of boat when Jesus was around, or traveled in as well. Neat. The Pool of Solomon. In John 9, Jesus healed a blind man by putting mud on his face and his eyes, and having him go wash. In the Pool of Solomon, many tourists have seen the famous Palestine Pool of Solomon in Jerusalem, the one which the empress built in the 5th century to accommodate the miracle. It is located at the end of a tunnel, the aqueduct that brings water from the Galilean spring into the city. In 2004, the Pool of Solomon was 1st century was accidentally discovered. During repairs, a drainage system, archaeologists Eli Shurkana were called in to excavate and unearth a large pool that had at least 20 steps leading down to it. Pottery from one end of the pool was used to date it to the 1st century AD 11. Given that it was in the exact location that scholars had long believed the actual Pool of Solomon to be, only 70 meters from the Byzantine pool, and it is dated the time of Jesus. It was identified as the actual Pool of Solomon, where the blind man had washed to receive healing. That's neat. Jesus' tomb is another one. There are 3 tombs in Jerusalem, purported to be the final resting place of Jesus. The site was the oldest of being the tomb of Christ lies within the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Sorry if I butchered that, I'm sure I did. Archaeologists' research has demonstrated that this site was a Jewish cemetery in an ancient limestone quarry outside the walls of Jerusalem at the time of Jesus' death. This aligns with the biblical description of the tomb in which Jesus was laid, being outside the city walls. Euphorus wrote that the Emperor Hadrian built a huge platform over the quarry and constructed a temple to Venus Aphrodite over the tomb of Christ. Jerome affirmed that said that the temple stood there until the time of Constantine. Euphorus also said that during his lifetime in the 4th century, the Emperor Constantine destroyed the Roman temple and is excavated through the fill of a platform until he found the tomb of Christ. He then had a new structure, the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built around the tomb. The Church of the Holy Sepulchre had been restored and rebuilt several times since its construction. During recent restorations, the shrine that surrounds the remains of the ancient tomb, experts removed the limestone slab that covered the burial bed of the tomb for the first time in almost 500 years. Mortar samples from the structure surrounding the tomb were tested, confirming it was built in the mid-4th century, and then rebuilt Crusade chapel time in the Middle Ages, affirming the ancient written history of the site. Archaeologists summarize, although absolute proof of the location of Jesus' tomb remains beyond our reach, the archaeological find and early literature evidence argues strongly for those who associate it with the Church of the Holy Sepulchre. Jesus' tears is another fascinating one. Jesus Wept is the shortest version of the English translation of the Bible and one of the most important of all for believers. The fact that the Messiah shed tears under his eyelids makes him more humanity to Jesus himself. They also gave relic hunters another target for finding something. Known as the Holy Tear, it has become a major center for pilgrimage in the Middle Ages. According to legend, the tears were collected by angels when Jesus wept over the death of Lazarus. The tears were then passed to Mary Magdalene for safekeeping. The tears then disappeared from the historical record for 1,000 years. The Holy Tear reappeared when Geoffrey Martel helped the Byzantine Emperor Michael IV repel invaders. For his military aid, Martel was gifted 2 relics, the arm of St. George and the tear of Christ. The Holy Tear was held in a carved rock sanctuary. The liquid within the rock was said to tremble at times. The tear disappeared during the French Revolution, unfortunately, though other churches have claimed that they have samples of the teardrops. So that's neat. Well, What do you think of all these fascinating things from Jesus? Do you believe that they are real, or do you believe that they're fake? I believe that they are real. I'm not a holy person, but I believe that they are real. Anyway, thanks for watching. Thanks for enjoying. Thanks for the comments below. Have a great one. Bye.